Okay, so the question we are discussing talks about the lexical functional grammar. So, which of the following is not correct for lexical functional grammar? First, in LFG, the lexical component is assigned much of the role that was formerly associated with the syntactic component of a transformational grammar. Second, in lexical functional grammar, the syntactic structure of a sentence consists of constituent structure and a functional structure in LFG. The third is in LFG, the role of grammatical functional functions is central and lexicon is taken as primitive. Next, LFG was developed by Bresnan. I think the option that is not correct is the role of grammatical functions is central and lexicon is taken as primitive. Now, please explain all of the other correct statements in context with lexical functional grammar.
In lexical functional grammar, LFG, the focus is on understanding language structure through two key levels of representation: constituent structure, C structure, and functional structure, F structure. Let's break down the correct statements you mentioned. 1. Lexical component in LFG. In LFG, the lexical component plays a central role. This approach diverges from earlier transformational grammars, where syntax handled much of the structural work. Instead, in LFG, the lexicon takes on more responsibility, directly associating words with their syntactic and functional properties. Essentially, the lexicon carries significant information that was previously handled by syntactic rules in transformational grammar. 2. Constituent structure, C structure, and functional structure, F structure. LFG describes sentences using both constituent structure, C structure, and functional structure, F structure. The C structure is similar to the traditional tree diagrams showing how words are organized hierarchically in a sentence, e.g. subject, object, verb phrases. The F structure, on the other hand, reflects the grammatical functions of sentence components such as subject, object, and tense. These two structures together represent how words are arranged and how they function in the sentence. 3. Development by Bresnan. Lexical functional grammar was indeed developed by Joan Bresnan along with Ron Kaplan in the late 1970s. Bresnan's work aimed to create a framework that could integrate the insights of transformational grammar, but without the need for complex transformations. LFG provides a way of mapping linguistic structures with a focus on both form, constituents, and function, grammatical roles. Why grammatical functions are central and lexicon is taken as primitive might be incorrect. While grammatical functions are central in LFG, the lexicon isn't exactly taken as primitive in the way this option suggests. In LFG, the lexicon is crucial, but it works together with the syntactic and functional components rather than being something purely primitive. The lexicon provides information about the syntactic and functional properties of words, but it doesn't replace the importance of functional structures in the overall analysis of sentences. Does this explanation help clarify things?
Yes, it certainly does. But what I'd like you to do is I'd like you to simplify all of the three statements that are mentioned regarding the LFG and explain a simplified version of all of the three correct statements.
Sure. Let's simplify the three correct statements about lexical functional grammar, LFG. 1. Lexical component in LFG. In LFG, the dictionary or list of words is very important. Instead of relying heavily on complex rules about sentence structure, LFG uses the information from the dictionary to explain how words work in a sentence. The dictionary holds key information about the roles that words can play in a sentence. 2. Constituent structure and functional structure. LFG breaks down sentences into two parts. Constituent structure is like a map showing how words are grouped together in a sentence, kind of like drawing a family tree of the sentence. Functional structure explains what each part of the sentence does. For example, it shows which word is the subject, which word is the object, and what tense the sentence is in. Together, these two structures give a complete picture of how the sentence works. 3. Development by Bresnan. Joan Bresnan developed LFG to simplify sentence analysis. Instead of using complicated transformations, like in older grammar theories, she wanted a system that directly connects the structure of sentences with their meaning. Her goal was to make understanding sentence structure more straightforward by focusing on both the form, how words are arranged, and the function, what role each word plays. Let me know if this breakdown is clearer.
Yes, it certainly is. Now, moving on to the next question, has two assertions. Move A basically allows anything to move anywhere. Second, there are no constraints restricting move A, so movement is unrestricted. Now, what I'd like you to do is I'd like you to explain what move A really is. What conditions does it satisfy? What is the mechanism underlying move A? What
Move
underlying is
A
working?
refers to a concept in syntactic theory, particularly in the Chomskyan tradition of transformational grammar. It deals with the movement of elements within a sentence to satisfy certain structural needs or constraints in a language. What is move A? One definition, move A involves the movement of noun phrases, NPs, or other arguments like subjects, objects, etc. in a sentence. This movement is usually driven by the need to place elements in their appropriate syntactic positions to create grammatically correct sentences. 2. Conditions it satisfies. Move A operates to satisfy syntactic constraints such as case assignment. Elements may move to positions in a grammatical case, e.g. nominative, accusative. Agreement. Move A can help elements meet subject-verb agreement requirements. For example, a subject might move to the beginning of the sentence to be in the right place for subject-verb agreement. 3. Mechanism. Move. It typically involves raising. A subject or object might move to a higher position in the sentence to satisfy certain grammatical needs. For example, in the sentence, John seems to be happy, the subject John starts in a lower position in the embedded clause and moves up to satisfy the need for a subject in the main clause. Passivization. In passive sentences, the object moves to the subject position, as in, the ball was kicked by John, where the ball moves to the subject position. 4. Unrestricted movement. When we say that there are no constraints restricting move A, it implies that this type of movement is not limited by specific barriers like those in move B, which deals with more restricted, feature-driven movement. However, move A is still constrained by overall syntactic rules like locality conditions, which prevent movement from being too far in a sentence. Example, active. The teacher praised the student. Passive with move A. The student was praised by the teacher. In the passive sentence, the student moves from the object position to the subject position due to move A. Hacksharf to summarize, move A is all about moving parts of a sentence, like subjects or objects, to satisfy syntactic rules. It's unrestricted in the sense that it isn't governed by specific feature-checking conditions, but it still operates within general grammatical constraints. Is this explanation helpful?
Yes, it certainly is. So the first is correct, but the second is not correct. Moving on to the next question. One consistent aspect in the works of Rulin 1975, Mallinson and Blake 1981, and Tomlin 1979 and 1986 regarding word order is that the SVO word order languages are lesser than SOV word order languages. SVO lesser than SOV.
It looks like you're referring to research on word order, particularly the work of Blake, 1981, and Tomlin, 1979-1986. These linguists studied word order patterns across languages, and one consistent aspect in their work is the focus on subject-verb-object, SVO, word order. SVO word order, SVO subject-verb-object, is one of the most common word orders found across the world's languages. In this order, the subject comes first, followed by the verb, and then the object. For example, in English we say, she, subject, eats, verb, and apple, object. The research. 1. Blake, 1981, focused on typological studies and discussed the common patterns found in SVO languages. Blake's research often highlighted how this word order tends to align with certain syntactic and semantic properties across languages. Tomlin, 1979-1986. Tomlin conducted extensive research on word order, particularly focusing on how SVO is not just a frequent pattern, but also how it interacts with discourse, cognition, and sentence processing. Tomlin's work suggested that SVO languages often align with cognitive preferences for subject prominence. Consistent aspect. One consistent finding in both Blake's and Tomlin's research is that SVO word order tends to be stable and prevalent across many languages. This is because SVO reflects a natural way of organizing information, starting with the agent, subject, followed by the action, verb, and ending with the recipient or object of the action. Is there something specific about the SVO word order in their research that you'd like to explore further?
So here it mentions that the SVO word order languages are smaller than the SOV word order languages, meaning that the most common word order is SOV.
Yes, that's correct. While SVO word order is common, the most prevalent word order across the world's languages is actually SOV, subject, object, verb. This means that in most languages, the subject comes first, followed by the object, and then the verb. For example, in Japanese, you might say, she, subject, and apple, eats. Why is SOV so common? Cognitive patterns. Many linguists believe that SOV aligns with the way humans naturally process information. The subject introduces the topic, the object clarifies the action's target, and the verb finalizes the action. Language development. Historically, languages may have developed with SOV order due to its simplicity in early stages of communication. SVO versus SO. While common in languages like English, Chinese, and Swahili, SVO is still less frequent globally compared. Found in languages like Japanese, Turkish, and Hindi, SOV word order dominates. Linguists like Blake and Tomlin highlighted this distinction in their research by emphasizing that, while SVO is prominent in some regions, SOV remains the most widespread word order globally. Is there something specific about the contrast between DIN and SVO that you're curious about?
Let's move on to the next question. The next question has two assertions. The first assertion is that movements are licensed in the minimalist program through the feature checking mechanism. So movements in the minimalist program are licensed through the feature checking mechanism. Second assertion is that a movement may occur because an interpretable feature in a lexical item may require a merger with another item where this feature is uninterpretable before this feature can be fully understood. The second assertion is it says that the movement may occur because an interpretable feature. So there's an interpretable feature in a lexical item. It may require a merger with another item where this feature is uninterpretable before this feature can be fully understood. Now, I want you to clarify both of these assertions, and the second assertion is actually not correct. The first assertion is correct that the movement in the minimalist program is licensed by the feature checking mechanism, but the second assertion is not correct. So, please explain both of the assertions. What could have been what could have been the correct assertion in place of the second assertion? Go ahead and do that.
Explanation of the assertions. 1. First assertion. Correct. Movements are licensed in the minimalist program through the feature checking mechanism. Explanation. In the minimalist program, which is a framework in generative grammar developed by Noam Chomsky, feature checking plays a crucial role in syntactic movement. According to this theory, elements move within the syntactic structure to ensure that certain grammatical features like tense, agreement, or case are checked or satisfied. Movement only happens when there is a need to check features to create a grammatically correct sentence. For example, in a sentence like, he is singing, The subject he moves to the subject position to check features like nominative case and subject-verb agreement with the verb is. This is why the assertion that movements are licensed by feature checking is accurate within the minimalist framework. 2. Second assertion, incorrect. A movement may occur because an interpretable feature in a lexical item may require a merger with another item where this feature is uninterpretable before this feature can be fully understood. Explanation. The second assertion incorrectly explains the relationship between interpretable and uninterpretable features. In minimalist theory, movement occurs because an uninterpretable feature in one element must be checked against a matching interpretable feature in another element. It's not about an interpretable feature requiring a merger with an uninterpretable one, but rather the opposite. Uninterpretable features drive movement. For example, in a sentence like, "The book was read by Mary," the passive verb read has an uninterpretable agreement feature that must be checked against the subject of the book, which carries the corresponding interpretable feature. This checking process drives the necessary movement to ensure the sentence is grammatically correct. What the correct assertion should be. The correct version of the second assertion should reflect the idea that uninterpretable features trigger movement rather than interpretable features. A more accurate assertion might be corrected. Second assertion. A movement may occur because an uninterpretable feature in a lexical item requires checking against a corresponding interpretable feature in another item to satisfy grammatical requirements. This correction aligns with the mechanism in the minimalist program, where uninterpretable features are what trigger movement, not interpretable ones. Summary. The first assertion is correct. Movement is licensed by the feature checking mechanism. The second assertion is incorrect. The correct explanation should focus on uninterpretable features needing to be checked against interpretable ones, not the other way around. If you need further clarification on feature checking, or how movement operates in specific sentence structures, feel free to ask.
Please provide simpler explanation, of the statement you just mentioned, the corrected statement, the second corrected statement. The second assertion is incorrect, so you provided a corrected version of the second assertion. Now, please provide the simpler explanation of the corrected second assertion.
Sure. Here's a simpler explanation of the corrected second assertion. Simpler explanation. In the minimalist program, certain parts of a sentence, like words or phrases, might have features that don't make sense on their own. These features need to be matched with another part of the sentence that makes them clear. This matching process is what causes movement in the sentence. So, if a word has a feature that needs to be fixed or understood, it moves to another part of the sentence where that feature can be properly explained. For example, if a verb needs to agree with the subject of a sentence, the subject might move closer to the verb to make the sentence grammatically correct. This is how the process of movement works in the minimalist program. Does that help clarify the concept?
Yes, it certainly did. Now, the example that you gave regarding the corrected version of the second assertion, please give a simpler explanation of that example.
Here's a simpler explanation of the example. Imagine a sentence where the verb needs to match with the subject, like, "She eats apples." In this case, the verb eats needs to agree with she. If the sentence wasn't clear, the subject she might need to move closer to the verb eats so that everything matches up correctly. This movement helps make the sentence sound right. So in short, words move around in the sentence to make sure everything fits together and makes sense. Does this simplify the example better?
Yes, moving on to the next question has two assertions. First, neither D structure nor S structure is an interface level phenomena. Both were posted for internal reasons to satisfy the descriptive demands, not on the basis of virtual conceptual necessity. Now, neither D structure nor S structure is an interface level phenomena. Both were posted for internal reasons, that is, to satisfy the descriptive requirements, not on the basis of virtual conceptual necessity. This is a correct statement. Now, I want you to elaborate on what this really is. Like, on the basis of virtual conceptual necessity, what does this explain regarding this statement? And the second assertion is that in minimalism, D structure and S structure are dispensed with. That's also a correct statement, right? Because D structure has been replaced by LF, that is logical form, and S structure has been replaced by PF, that is phonetic form.
The statement you're referring to explains that D structure and S structure, which were concepts in earlier theories of syntax, were introduced more for practical reasons to handle specific linguistic data, rather than because they were essential for understanding the fundamental nature of language. In terms of virtual conceptual necessity, this means that D structure and S structure were not needed for the basic principles of how language works, but were rather added to meet the descriptive needs of the theory at the time. They were useful tools for explaining and analyzing linguistic phenomena, but not seen as conceptually fundamental to understanding language itself. In the minimalist theory of syntax developed by Noam Chomsky, D structure and S structure have been replaced. D structure was concerned with the deep syntactic structure of sentences, while S structure dealt with the surface structure. In minimalist terms, these are replaced by LF, logical form, and PF, phonetic form. LF deals with the meaning and logical relationships of a sentence, and PF deals with how a sentence sounds or is pronounced.